Okay, so we're going to look at Daniel 3 today. Next week, we're going to look at Uzzah touching the ark. These are the one-offs, and then we're into Ephesians, and then remember that night we're going to have a prayer night to kick things off. We're entering a new era of Redeemer, a new era of gospel ministry in this church. Really, really excited about it. Okay, so here's the deal. There's the director of a medical clinic. He greets this young man that comes through the doors. They become friends ever since the young man started taking his treatments. The young man's terminally ill. There's a new doctor, though, that's working the clinic that day, and he's not good with people. He's not empathetic. He has no empathy. He's blunt, he's cold, he's clinical. And this is his first time to see the young man. So when he sees him, they're in the office, and this is what the clinical doctor says. He says, "You know, don't you, that you won't live out the year?" Just like that, right? Cold, clinical. And this young man rushes out of the room, and he rushes by the director's desk, and the director tries to grab him right before he exits the building, and he's like, "What's wrong? What happened in there?" And he says, the devastated young man says, "That man took away my hope." And then he told him what he said. And the director of the clinic answered, "I guess he did." And with tremendous compassion, he said, "Perhaps, maybe, it's now time to find a new one." This time of the year is the year that we, what do? This is the time of year we talk, the church talks, the culture talks, politicians talk, the media talks, local schools talk, higher education talks. We all talk about hope. We all talk about change. We all talk about new beginnings, right? This is the season. This is the time to do it. We want those things. We want hope. We want change. We want new beginnings. We want them for ourselves. We want them for our loved ones. We want them for Waco. We want them for the world, right? Everybody wants them. Hope, change, and new beginning. We know we need these things. Everyone knows they need these things. But we also know how elusive they are. How hope just constantly slips through our fingers. How change, we talk a good game, but really? Do we really see change? We talk a big game about new beginnings, but honestly, I'm now at that age where I get tired of hearing these things. It's almost like every year we work ourselves up to an illusion. It's like we're all delusional. Hope, change, new beginnings. Maybe this passage has something to say about it. Let's stand for the hearing of God's word.
King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and maliciously accused the Jews. They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought these men before the king Nebuchadnezzar, answered and said to them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image I have set up? Now if you are ready when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, to fall down and worship the image I have made, well and good. But if you do not worship, you shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and the expression on his face was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it usually was heated. He ordered some of the mighty men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, their hats, and their other garments, and they were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's order was urgent and the furnace overheated, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. He declared to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king." He answered and said, "But I see 4 men, unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the appearance of the 4th is like the son of the gods." Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the door of the burning fiery furnace and declared, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire, and the satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not had any power over the bodies of those men. The hair on their heads was not singed, their cloaks were not harmed, and no smell of fire had come upon them. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants, who trusted in him and set aside the king's command and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree. Any people, nation, or language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb, and their houses laid in ruins, for there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. This is the word of the Lord.
Please be seated. So, God, we ask that you would shine on the page. We ask that you would illuminate our minds, enliven our hearts. And you would do this, Jesus, because right now you sit at the right hand of the throne of God. And you've sent your Spirit, and we ask that you would do so. So, oh Lord, may we experience you together right now with this text. And it's in Jesus' name we pray, amen. Okay, y'all, did you ever notice the tunics, the hats? Why such a long litany of, what the latest menswear was in those days? The reason why there's this long list, if you look at all of them, it just shows they're all very, very flammable, incredibly flammable. So it's just heightening the tension of the story. I'm not going to cover that, but I just thought when we were reading that's just unbelievable. Why do that? And then also, did you notice how detailed the music was, or the instruments were? Fascinating, right? I don't know what the answer is to that, but that was just fascinating. I thought I'd pick it up while we were reading it. All right, so hope, change, a new beginning. Why are they so elusive? Hope, change, a new beginning. Why is it so elusive? The answer from the text is very startling. The answer from the text is very blunt. The answer from the text is big. The answer from the text you can't miss. Here's why it's so elusive. Because we keep looking for them in golden giants. In chapter 2, we're not looking at Nebuchadnezzar has a bad dream. We don't need to know the specifics of what the dream is at this time. That was left to Daniel. But for our sake, what we do know is that what that bad dream did to Nebuchadnezzar is that it hit home. It reached, this bad dream went in and it reached the bottom of his heart and hit pay dirt. It crossed over into the mysterious regions of his heart. It gained access to the hidden places of his heart. In other words, when he heard this bad dream, he felt deeply in his bones the need for hope, the need for change, the need for a new beginning. And so what does he do to find it? What does he do to find hope? What does he do to find change? What does he do? How does he try to achieve it? How does he try to accomplish it? How does he try to activate it in his life? The answer is he does what we do. He does verse 1. He builds a golden giant. King Nebuchadnezzar, verse 1, made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. This golden giant is 90 feet tall. That's 30 yards tall. All of us are in the middle of football season. 30 yards, you can kind of measure that. It's 9 feet wide. It's probably a statue of himself. It's probably a statue of his greatness. It's probably a statue of his importance. It's probably an image of his security and an image of his power and his control and his influence and his specialness as the leader of the world. I mean, if you were to trace ancient kings, I put David at the top. I put Nebuchadnezzar like almost right next to him, and then I put Alexander the Great and then Chinggis Khan. I mean, he is a formidable man, a formidable leader, a formidable warrior, a superpower, right? Where did the gold come from? Well, guess where it came from? It came from Israel. In fact, what David did to prepare the temple, specifically it came from the temple. What David did to prepare the building of the temple, because remember, he couldn't build it. God didn't want him to build it because he was a man of war. He wanted his son, a man of peace, to build the temple. And so David gathered 100,000 talents of gold for his son Solomon to build the temple. Do you know what that is? That's 7.5 million pounds of gold. Cheapers. So the temple was loaded with gold. It was the target of every superpower. Any superpower that coveted Israel, they didn't want Israel's land. They wanted that temple. So when Nebuchadnezzar crushes Israel and captures the temple, he doesn't command his general, hey guys, only take the candlesticks. He wants the gold. So here we are on the plains of Dura in verse 1. We're on the plains of Dura with a king in need of hope, a king in need of change, a king in need of a new beginning. And he has 7.5 million pounds of stolen gold right next to him. And so what does he do? He has this huge fiery furnace, and he throws the gold into the fiery furnace. And what does he do? He melts the gold. And what does he do? He makes his own hope. He makes his own change. If he was Two-Face in Batman, he said he makes his own luck. 10 times we're told the golden giant is something Nebuchadnezzar, quote, sets up. 10 times is an incredible number of repetition. 3 is the perfect number of repetition in Hebrew. So this is over the charts, off the charts. Wherever we've gone, we've broken all boundaries and Hebrew grammar rules. 10 times repetition. It's something he set up. And then not only that, on top of all that, every character in this story says the same thing. Every character, the narrator, Nebuchadnezzar himself, his advisors, and all three friends report that this golden giant is something Nebuchadnezzar sets up. So what does this mean? What does this golden giant mean? You know what the golden giant means? It means this. The golden giant is the work of his own hands. The golden giant is the work of his own effort. The golden giant is the work of human control. The golden giant is how Nebuchadnezzar makes his own hope. It's how he makes his own change and his own new beginning. So why is hope so elusive? Why is change so elusive for us? Why is a new beginning so elusive for us? The answer from this text is because we keep trying to make our own. Because we're addicted to golden giants. We keep building our own hope, our own change, our own new beginnings. They're all golden giants, made in our own image. Hope, change, a new beginning. Maybe it's time we found a new one. We want to be in control of our hope, our change, our new beginning. But here's the raw truth, but we're not. And this is where the fiery furnace comes in. I mean, fiery furnaces are places where we finally get something. Fiery furnaces in our life, fiery furnaces in the text is a place where something radical happens, something extraordinary happens, something absolutely magical, powerful happens. You know what happens in fiery furnaces? You and I finally get deep in our bones. I am not in control. Fiery furnaces are places we are thrown into. Fiery furnaces are places that consume us. Do you see that word consume is used over and over again? And that the even as Larry was reading it, the burning fiery furnace. I mean, why are we loading such metaphors? Why loading such, extraordinary, over-the-top language? Why such fine details? Because fiery furnaces are places that consume us. They're places that consume. When you're in a fiery furnace, it consumes your wisdom. It consumes your strength. It consumes your hope. It consumes you. I am not in control. Fiery furnaces are places of desolation where human hope cannot help you, where human change cannot help you, where a new human beginning cannot help you. I am not in control. Fiery places are places of death, where your hopes die, where your change efforts die, where all your efforts at new beginnings die. I am not in control. But don't miss this. Fiery furnaces are also places where new hope arises, where new change arises, where a new beginning comes from. Perhaps it's time to find a new one. Watch, it's breathtaking. Watch the text. Watch the story. Watch the scene. I mean, it starts with true control. True control. Look at verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter." What? What? What do you mean you have no need to answer him? Holy cow, Nebuchadnezzar has them in control. Has them in control. His control. Nebuchadnezzar has them in his hands. Everything about Daniel 2, everything about Daniel 3 answers to Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar has the nations in his hands. He has all the peoples in his hands. He has all the lands and leaders in his hands. It all answers to him. He has Israel answering to him. He has Jerusalem answering to him. He has the temple answering to him. He has 7.5 million pounds of gold answering to him. Everything in this text answers to Nebuchadnezzar. How can they say, we have no need to answer to you in this matter? I mean, how do these three amigos, how do they believe such a thing? How do they think that way? How do they feel that way? How do they do that way? At this time, most of the times we spin off on our Christian messages to their courage and their guts and their glory and these great men, and that's not the point of the text. The question is, how? How can they believe such a thing? How do they think this way, feel this way, act this way? This is not a put on. This is not, they're up on catechism night and they're asked the question and they recite it. This is coming from their guts. This is coming from their bones. This is them. How do they have this? And the answer is this: because they're experiencing a new hope. Because they're experiencing a new change. Because they're experiencing a new beginning. In other words, they are experiencing true control. They are experiencing God's control. True control. They know deep in their bones that everything answers not to Nebuchadnezzar, it answers to God. They know that every matter on the face of the planet doesn't answer to Nebuchadnezzar, it answers to God. They know that God is in control, that that's true control. And trusting God that He is in control is real control in life. It's real hope. It's a real change. It's a real new beginning. They're not finding control in themselves. In other words, here's that 10 times what Nebuchadnezzar set up. They're not finding control in themselves, what they set up, the work of their own hands. It's fascinating in chapter 2, the bad dream that Nebuchadnezzar has is about a rock that comes that's not made by human hands. It's not made by human control. And it's a rock that displaces all the other kingdoms and powers and giants and gives life to the world. New hope, new change, right? They're not finding control in Nebuchadnezzar. They're not finding control in his advisors. They're not finding control in their bad luck. They're not finding control in the evil of others. They're not finding control in the fiery furnace. In other words, what others set up, what the fiery furnace even sets up, the fiery furnace is real, but what it sets up, they're not finding control in. They're not even finding control, finding hope, finding change, finding a new beginning in anything from their own hands. They're finding control in God. True control. So a new hope, a new change, a new beginning starts with the fiery furnace. I am not in control. God is. And that's true control. That's the beginning of new hope, new change, a new beginning start arising in an individual, in a family, in a marriage, in kids, at work. In the fiery furnace, we come to experience, when you're in the fiery furnace, you come to experience that all you have left is sheer dependence upon God. That's all you have left, because it consumes everything else. A new hope, a new change, and a new beginning starts with a fiery furnace, but watch, it becomes concrete. It becomes tangible. It becomes real. It becomes experiential. It breaks into your life with a fourth man. Verse 24, then the king Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste, and he declared to his counselors, all right, did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire? Huh? Did we? They answered and said to him, because they better, at this point, whatever he says is true, whatever he says is right, if the grass is orange, it's orange. They say, true, O king. That's the best answer they could answer. He answered and said, but I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in the midst of the fire, and they're not hurt. And the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods. How incredible is it? I mean, this is so breathtaking, y'all. Daniel's not preaching this sermon. The single only human being on the face of the planet that is reporting and preaching about the 4th man is Nebuchadnezzar. Not Daniel, the hero, not Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego saying, hey, man, this is what's going on down here. I don't know what's going on up there, but we're doing quite fine because we've got the 4th man. This is Nebuchadnezzar preaching and giving us all that we need to know about the 4th man. In fact, he has a 3-point sermon about the 4th man. First thing he says about him is he's with the 3 friends in the fiery furnace. In other words, the 4th man is with them. The second thing he says about this 4th man, that he's like the Son of God. What an interesting choice of words, isn't it? I mean, he's godlike. He's divine. He's of another world. He's otherworldly. And then the third thing he says about him in the later part, in verse 28, he says he delivered his servants. In other words, he's a redeemer. He's a rescuer. He's a deliverer. He's hope. He's change. He's a new beginning. Moses calls Israel bondage. When Moses was writing about Israel's bondage, do you know what he called it? A fiery furnace. When Isaiah predicted that Israel would be crushed and stripped and raped by Babylon, do you know what he called that exile that was coming down the road for them? A fiery furnace. And then later, Isaiah says this. He records, though you walk through the fire, the fiery furnace, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you. That's being fulfilled right now. So all of Israel will know that even though they're in the fiery furnace of Babylon, there's a 4th man there. They'll be unbound, but they're bound. They'll be walking free, though they're burning. And then you got to ask yourself, well, why won't the flame of the fiery furnace consume you? Why won't the flame of the fiery furnace consume them? Why won't the flame of the fiery furnace of criticism consume you? Why wouldn't the flame of failure or rejection or shame consume you? Why wouldn't the flame of evil consume you? Why wouldn't the flame of sin and death and judgment and accusation consume you? Why wouldn't the flame of a struggling child consume you? Why wouldn't the flame of getting fired at work consume you? Why wouldn't the flame of a loveless marriage consume you? Why don't the flames consume? And the text answers only one answer: because of the 4th man. Because the 4th man is with you. But I see 4 men unbound walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods. And so what we get here is we fast forward through redemptive history. Right here we're getting artifacts, we're getting fossils, we're getting shadows, we're getting a stick figure of this one who will come, this 4th man. We're getting glimpses. It's like right way back in Genesis, we're taking a picture of him, and he's a shadow. And he's just a shadow. He's announced that hero child is going to crush all evil. He's going to crush all powers. He's going to step on the head of the serpent and crush him. And all of a sudden, we've got an outline. We've got a template. We've got a pattern of this one to come. And we start moving through the Bible, and someone starts clicking the lens. And that image gets clearer, and it gets clearer, and it gets clearer. And so the fourth man gets completely clear with Jesus. He's not like a son of the gods. He is the Son of God. The image is set. The picture is clear. And so Jesus is the one with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery flame, and that's why they're not hurt. That's why they're not consumed. But on the cross, the ultimate fiery furnace, the ultimate consuming fire, Jesus is so with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he's so with them that he doesn't let them go there. He goes all alone. There's no longer a fourth man. There's only one man. And he doesn't walk around unhurt. And he doesn't walk around unbound. He gets consumed. Piece by painful piece. On the cross, the ultimate fiery furnace, Jesus is so with you, he goes in without you. He's no longer a fourth man with you. He's now the only one man for you. He is consumed for you, for your sin, for your death, for all judgment. So he's your new hope. He's your new change. He's your new beginning. And that's it. In fact, the Heidelberg says it so well. He says, what is your only comfort in life and death? And the answer is Jesus. That's it. And that's all you need. So, you want to be in control. I want to be in control. The raw facts of this text is it's trying to tell you, and Nebuchadnezzar will eventually figure it out. Nebuchadnezzar, we're not preaching through this book, so I'm just going to tell you the end of the story. Nebuchadnezzar actually loses his mind. He goes insane because trying to be in control will make you insane. Because we're not in control. So that's the end of the story for him. But it's also when he goes into insanity, he goes into his own fiery furnace, right? And while he's in his own fiery furnace, he realizes, I'm not in control. He finally is able to say, I'm not in control. And you know what happens? His sanity is restored to him. He becomes mentally healthy. You want to be in control, but you're not. So we need to let go of our golden giants. God is true control. We need to find our control in him. That's the start of new hope and new change and new beginning. But it becomes concrete. It becomes concrete the moment you start seeing there's a fourth man who really is the one man who's with you. And now you have hope. And now you have change. And now you have a new